The numbers in just 2023 and 2024 alone clearly shows that the PRC's espionage threats to Taiwan are really growing in scale and to a certain extent, sophistication.
The types of cases are becoming more diverse, not just spying, but for example, taking photos of military sites or attempting to organize a paramilitary group in the event of a Chinese invasion.
习近平上台之后，其实中国内部他们在这个统战工作上面有他们必须要去达成的这种 KPI 的时候，那事实上他们也会必须要去试着找到几个让他们突破台湾防线的一个缺口。
最近这5年间谍越来越多，大概平均增加了40%左右。
去年破获共谍的案件是前年的3倍。
你可以说它是一个投机的状态，但是毕竟它手边的资源非常庞大，所以这对中国而言是一个很容易进行的事情。我今天如果渗透了1万个人，那我在这个里面找到2个3个真正有价值的，那这个行动它就成功了。他要的就是那2、3个有价值的人。
A retired Air Force colonel and 3 active duty officers were detained on Wednesday.
Just last month, another group of former officers were accused of leaking intelligence.
5 people have been detained on suspicion of operating a Chinese spy network.
Taiwan's defense ministry says it has uncovered a link in a military spy network working for
Nikkei
China.
Newspaper says that up to 90% of retired Taiwanese officers have provided intelligence to China.
For example, with the case involving the theft of a helicopter.
CH-4拐气努克直升机作为我国重要军务，却成了中共锁定策反目标。
Chinese spies approached a Taiwanese army officer. They offered him $15 million to defect to China along with a military chopper.
中国航母山东号沿着海峡中线通过台海，共谍集团下达命令，要谢姓飞官驾驶直升机沿着海岸线低空飞行，降落在山东舰上。
And the numbers show that such cases are becoming common in Taiwan.
If that had gone through, I think we might have seen the unusual spectacle of the Taiwanese military shooting down one of its own aircraft. It's very much out of the Cold War, torn from the pages of the Cold War.
如果他去渗透了我们的，比方说航特部，取得有效的情报之外，也可以透过这些机会去拿到一些很重要的装备。
如果他有这样的这个科技之后，他可以模仿、破解、反制这个美国的先进的武器系统。中共它的情报收集主要是透过很多人去收集不同的片段，完成一个很大的拼图。
One prominent U.S. historian have described China and its spies as the Soviet Union on steroids. And, it has deeply penetrated Taiwan's military, and this war without gunfire is this growing threat that it faces.
And these Chinese espionage operations represent only the tip of the iceberg.
Between 1995 and 2019, there were only 34 cases of individuals in the Taiwanese army charged and found guilty of being communist agents, spies for China. But from 2020 to 2023, the ROC military uncovered more than 95 turncoats within its ranks. The expansion of veterans networks tied to the military, together with the growth of cross-strait employment and exchange vectors, has multiplied points of contact. Between Hollywood-style plots to steal military hardware, exotic honeypots entrapping high-ranking officers, and expansive infiltration of the rank and file, what is driving this unprecedented surge in Taiwanese soldiers betraying their country for China? And how much of Taiwan's security hangs in the balance? Welcome to Finding Formosa, MI Spy. In 2020, Taipei formally implemented the Anti-Infiltration Act, intended to weaken hostile forces' organizational, financial, and mobilization capabilities in Taiwan through a suite of defensive mechanisms, cutting off funding flows, constraining influence operations, imposing joint and heightened penalties, and strengthening the armed forces' criminal code and related laws. While this did represent a real step towards change, critics point to a range of structural challenges which mean military espionage remains a systemic issue. Chen Shi, a former ROC army recruit, left Taiwan to join the French Foreign Legion before spending more than a year on the front lines in Ukraine.
我在台湾原本也是担任就是义务役嘛， 就是服兵役。那时候本来就想先志愿役带下去，但是后来就是在服役的过程中发现说，好像在台湾在国军就是比较没办法接受那种环境，所以我选择出国到法国外籍兵团在那边服役。刚好我是在22年的时候5月退伍，那时候我有很多的战友，他们以前也是乌克兰人，那就是受他们的影响，以自己的方式去帮忙乌克兰，就是贡献一份心力这样子。乌克兰军队士气还是不错的啦，对，因为他们的作战信念就很明确，就是为了保家卫国。国军士兵叛变到对岸，我觉得比较大的原因当然是我们的政治对立跟政治形态的结果。
In general, the Taiwanese military has struggled with low morale for a long time. There's a number of issues. One is just that question of the military and its national identity, the fact that it's still vaguely pro-ROC identity, but now it's more aligned with the DPP. So the sense of mission of defending Taiwan sort of became muddled at a certain point.
那导致我们的士兵说，他们不太知道是说自己是为什么而战。他说是为了保卫台湾而战，还是为了中华民国而战？因为可能有些人支持台独啊，有些人支持是中华民国派啊，他们的想法各不同。
In January of this year, retired Lieutenant General Kan Anguo was indicted for violating Taiwan's National Security Act, charged with taking almost $350,000 from China and plotting an armed coup against the government.
很像是在俄乌战争靠近东边的一些乌克兰人会比较认同俄国的，但无论如何，高安国他最重要就是认同大中国。
有了这样的中国的认同，你当然对中国怀有一种情感，就会把从中国来的会有一点亲切感。你不会认为在你身边的中国人他对你怀有敌意，或者对你有不良的企图的。
大众啊是想在国军里面其实还是渗透啦，因为当初我们的国军成立的时候，就是所谓我们的党军队这样子。那大家当然后来我们就军队开始行政中立化、政治中立化之后，开始变成国家的军队。但其实这些传统遗留下来的东西，还是会潜伏在军队里面，觉得这是军队的历史与传统。
And so this actually affects a number of things. For example, we still have many individuals in the military who end up saying that, well, we're all part of the great Chinese nation. Or they'll say that Chinese people will never make war on the Chinese people, so this is irrational. Historically, sentences handed down for spying to former military veterans has been pretty light. It was more severe to be caught smoking cannabis than to be spying for China.
Those sentences were woefully inadequate and do not amount to any deterrent on would-be spies. There is political sensitivities involved in some of these cases.
Taiwan is the Republic of China, and China is the People's Republic of China. And so you're still spying for China, but which China? And so historically, this has been an impediment to having stiff penalties for spying in such actions.
我们看到，就是因为这个过去判刑比较轻啊，那中共对台湾的这种间谍行动是越来越严重的啊，所以很多立法委员或很多媒体或者民意都要求说，对这种破坏台湾国家安全的行为，应该要量刑要加重。
And as public opinion in Taiwan moves increasingly against Beijing, demographic changes are rapidly weakening identification with China over time.
那我们知道说，国军从国民政府刚刚到台湾的时候，就是1949年到现在，其实它的成员的组成也有很大的转变。
那在这种情况之下，从各种民调都知道，认同是大中国的思想的，大概平均在9%而已。那国军基层的人员其实都是很年轻的，他们对中国其实没有感情。
That's one complicating factor in the sort of the demographic changes where you start having more polarization of those ranks with this greater distinction of either Taiwanese or Chinese. You find older generations that may see this as emerging threats to their nationalism.
The military will keep putting out these videos and releases about, for example, the Sino-Japanese War, and that really turns off young people who may identify as Taiwanese and are pro-Taiwan, and that really pushes them away.
And there are some cases wherein senior officials in charge of addressing the political warfare apparatuses of the Taiwan military had publicly noted that they no longer see the PRC as an adversary, but actually, Chinese comrades.
导致说，大家对军队的形象就会越来越不好。真的人才或者有志青年，他就不会想加入国军去服役。如果这时候需要招募人的话，就要靠有薪资、福利跟待遇来诱使人加入。他招募到加入的人说，他们都可能是以利益为导向的人比较多，因为当初在加入的时候就是为了金钱这一方面。
Chinese intelligence agencies, when targeting military personnel, often look for individuals that have become disenfranchised. They may be in debt, or they have other personal reasons to need money.
过去它主要是以高阶的军官为主，但是从这几年破获的案件也可以看出来，它慢慢它的目标转向是基层的士官兵，他们是自愿意的，然后有些花钱花得比较凶，所以要跟外面借钱，或者是到当铺借钱等等。
And so another motivator that we're starting to see appear a lot more in more recent cases is financial gains. What's revealing about some of more recent cases is just how the PRC has been successful in leveraging the internet, and this comes from online loans.
他会对这些低阶的军人进行借款，那接着用这个债务来逼迫他配合。
And even as Chinese information operations continue to expand beyond officers to target increasing numbers of rank and file, critics believe Taiwan's military counterintelligence apparatus is increasingly outmoded, creaking beneath the relics of a bygone era.
台湾军方反渗透的工作做得还不够落实啦。那其实我们这个体系继承苏联时代一直到现在在使用的一个体系啦，那它在现在发挥的效用没有那么大。
提高台湾的反渗透能力，最重要的是法律强化反渗透法、境外势力干涉法、间谍法，执法机关他们才有能力处理间谍。2024年底，欧盟提出了一个新的战略，冷战结束后的战略已经不适用了，所以要重新认知到俄国跟中国的威胁。
There definitely is a pressing need for Taiwan to work with international partners to improve counterintelligence because of the fact that China's influence can be very integrated to society, and what is free speech and what surpasses the bounds of it can be really hard to decide.
过去美国跟台湾在这方面的合作是非常好的，那如果能够扩大到周边国家，譬如说五眼联盟的国家或者是日本，我觉得对台湾的反制共谍的渗透或者窃取来讲是非常有帮助的。
But just as I think there is a need for greater readiness in Taiwan's defense establishment, they also need professional personnel that can assist in the counterintelligence war that Taiwan faces. This is often described as a war without gunfire, and this war without gunfire is pervasive and it's persistent.
台湾已经是个民主国家了，但还没有变成一个公民社会，所以台湾现在对于民众的宣传应该要强化。
就像乌克兰跟俄罗斯一样，他们之前是同一个国家，都是同一个政体下面，那有具备相似的文化跟语言，还有习惯跟社会结构制度，所以说他们会千丝万缕牵扯在一起这样子。乌克兰他们也是像台湾一样分成两派，可能一派是亲俄的，一派是亲欧的，那对比台湾一派可能就是反中的，一派是亲中的这样子。乌克兰为什么后来做出改变，是因为他们爆发那场战争。当然我们如果台湾没有这个契机的话，那只能透过就是政府啊，或是民间啊，那包括还有军队，透过教育或是一些教育的改变，然后去宣导，那还有一些舆论的去反制，那才可以渐渐去扭转这个风向啦。它是一种持续跟长期性的对抗，就是一种台面下的战争，它一直在持续的这样。